Welcome to the Transformer Unicorn Tales. I'm Katie, your ever-transforming host. This is a podcast about awesome transformations, food, for thought, and occasionally unicorns. I am so excited that you're here listening to this. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome. Today, we are going to talk climate change, which affects all of our lives, which is a transformation that we all go through. Also, how we relate to this topic. So, I have a beautiful guest for you today who I'm going to let introduce herself and tell you her story so that we can start this conversation about climate change and transformations around it. So,
yeah. Hi. Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Katharina Hellmann. I'm a certified life coach, and I'm also a certified climate change coach. And I am coaching people around climate change in any sort of capacity. So on climate change emotions, on things that people want to do or can still do about climate change, their individual actions like reducing carbon footprint, living more sustainably, other types of climate action, whatever they want to do. And I just bring coaching tools to anyone who is in the space of climate change, who doesn't want to stay there in those deep and painful emotions, and who wants to help make the world a better place, basically. So that is my mission.
Oh, that's your goal. And how did you get to this mission?
Well, I mean, I think you know that a lot of coaches have been their own client in a previous stage of their life. So yeah, I mean, I was in a very, very dark place a few years ago when I first heard about the IPCC report of 2018. That was for me the turning point in the negative sense with regards to climate change. Because before I came across this report in the news, I knew that climate change existed and all of that, but I didn't really grasp the enormity and the extensity of the problem and the potential consequences for humanity and for the future. And this report came out right at the time where my husband and I had just gotten married the year before, and we were in the process of, planning our family. So when this report came out, for me, it really was this turning point of questioning everything, like whether I was going to be able to bear the responsibility of putting a human into a world like that, as it was painted in this report. I was questioning my job and whether I should, drop everything and become someone working on like kind of a climate change topic, all those kinds of things. So I was really questioning everything, my lifestyle. I mean, in fact, I took drastic changes to our lifestyle as well to reduce our carbon footprint. But the sort of having a kid was sort of the most sort of prominent question that I had at the time, or sort of the focal point of all these emotions. And as I said, I was in a really, really dark place, and crying for days and that kind of stuff. I mean, it was really bad. And I went to therapists and all sorts of, I tried to find people that could help me. And I had the feeling that there really aren't that many out there that are helping people in that kind of place that I was in. Or at least, let's say there are people out there, but not much of what was out there was actually resonating with me personally. And even therapists, my experience with the ones that I talked to were like that they weren't on the same page either. So I had the feeling of being profoundly misunderstood by not only my sort of social environment and feeling kind of isolated and alone in how I was seeing the future and how bad the future was going to be, while everyone else was just getting on with their life basically around me. And also the therapists that I talked to were like, yeah, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. So kind of relax, calm down, you know, the moment to think about is now, and let's look at your childhood story, kind of. I mean, I'm obviously now, you know, putting it very bluntly and sort of over the top, but like bottom line was I didn't really find the help that I was expecting or hoping to find out there. And then I came across coaching and across the coaching tools that I've now been trained in as a coach myself, and that for me made the difference, because that was that I understood for the first time in all my life, despite having done therapy and you know, personal growth, been on a personal growth journey for years. This was the first time that I actually like deep down realized that I had the power to change my mindset and my emotions for all by myself without any external influence. And then I started to learn that, and I started to apply that, and slowly but surely I managed to kind of dig myself out of this black hole that I'd fallen into. And in fact, the changes that I've seen in my life have been so transformative for me personally that I've decided to become a coach just for the purpose of being able to teach that to others. And since I had this experience with climate anxiety and you know, not being that, not finding that many really useful resources out there with regards to mindset and emotional management and how that can translate into climate action and you know, doing that, I decided to focus on that topic. And yeah, that's, long story short, that's where I am now.
That's a really amazing story, how you then, you know, find that inside of yourself, like, you know, I can still do things for myself. Because I feel like with climate change, I think the first feeling we get is like it's out of our control. So I can't do anything because it's such a big topic. And also you first think, you know, it's the whole world. So how could I fix the whole world? Or indeed the IPCC, like all those numbers were like, yeah, this is not going well. And how could I as a person change anything?
Yeah.
So I think many people recognize that place of, okay, how could I do anything about this? And that's how you then end up in
Yeah.
a dark place, or you ignore it, which is also not a nice place to be. Um, but I was wondering, what were the things that helped you with the anxiety?
Well, as I said, one of the most profound realizations that I had through this whole thing is that, first of all, my emotions are actually in and of themselves harmless. Like, you know, so many things in our life that we do that, you know, basically anything that induces addiction or anything that, you know, is typically done too much or too, you know, that serves to distract ourselves, ultimately serves to distract ourselves from our own emotions. So that was one of the most important things for me to realize, that there wasn't actually any need for me to distract myself from my emotions by working too much or, you know, eating sugar and you know, drinking and all those kind of things. Because if you actually learn how to actually feel your feelings, how to process them, and how to you know, let them just flow naturally through your body without getting rid of them or without resisting them or trying to avoid them, you gain so much power and agency back over your own life, and you realize that then you kind of are in control of what is happening to you. It's not your emotion, you're not a victim of your emotion anymore. You have the power and the agency here. And that was the first realization, that it's actually not anything that will kill me if I am feeling anxiety. In fact, it's a completely normal human emotion. In fact, all negative emotions are human, are normal, are healthy, especially in the face of an existential crisis like climate change. So if you are feeling, I mean, not you personally, but if anyone is feeling anxiety and fear and panic and hopelessness in the face of climate change, this is actually just a sign that you are human, that you are caring. It's a sign of love. It's a sign of caring. Anyone who doesn't care about any of this won't feel anxiety, won't feel fear, because they just don't care anymore. They've either given up or they don't, I mean, it's just not important to them. So having emotions like fear and anxiety and panic with regard to climate change is a sign that there is love underneath for all of that, for nature, for the planet, for the future, for your children, for other people. So it's a sign of love, first of all. And secondly, it is something completely normal. Our brain has not evolved very much from the place where it was back in the Stone Age, where we were still living in caves as humans and had to, you know, fight for our survival against predators. So we still have this very large and very powerful part of our brain that is the lizard brain, this sort of, let's say, primitive brain that kicks into action when we are reading about something, for example, or when we are coming into contact with something that objectively doesn't put us in any like vital survival danger. Like if I'm reading an article about, let's say, forest fires in the California or something, and I'm sitting on my couch in Munich, Germany, I am not at physical threat to my survival in that particular moment. However, I'm still feeling the anxiety because my brain is kicking in, my lizard brain is kicking in and making it seem for me that the fires happening on the other side of the planet are a threat to my personal survival. And once you realize that, once you understand that mechanism, you can take a step back from that, let's say. You can watch your brain do its thing if you want, and you can then decide how you want to act after that. You are not a victim of this emotion anymore, but you take your agency, your power back, and you get then to a place where you can decide, okay, am I really in danger here? Yes or no? Is there really any threat to my physical survival here? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then you can look forward and say, okay, what do I want to do about this? Is there anything that I can do about it? If yes, what could that be? And if no, is there maybe a better place for me to go emotionally to handle all of this and to deal with all of that? So the most important thing that I learned through this through coaching, and that's also one of the most important things that I'm now teaching my clients, is the emotional side of things, like how to manage, how to allow, how to deal, how to process your emotions around climate change. Where do they come from? How do they work? Let's say, how does the brain work in the face of all of this, and what can I do about it? How can I deal with that in a productive way that doesn't paralyze me, but that actually lets me take the actions that I want to take? And another absolutely essential realization that I had is also where the emotions are coming from. Because you see, most people think that how they feel and what they feel in any given moment is, let's say, a cause, or is the responsibility is coming from something external. So for example, if I'm feeling climate anxiety, people are thinking, of course I'm feeling anxiety, it's because of climate change. So climate change is responsible for how I'm feeling in this particular moment. However, what I realized is that it is nothing outside of you that is causing how you feel. It's all within you. Your emotions are caused by how you are thinking about things, what you are making things mean for yourself. I gave the example of, sitting on my sofa and reading about forest fires on the other side of the planet. I'm making those forest fire mean in that very moment that I'm also in danger, the planet is in danger, that we will all be dying, that, but there is a different way to think about that. And there is a way to reprogram your brain to think about that. And I'm not saying that thinking that, forest fires are a bad thing is a wrong way to think about them. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just, being able to realize that whatever I'm feeling in any given moment is a direct consequence, is a result of what I am thinking in any given moment about any given external event. And then also thinking about, is this thinking serving me? Is it serving me personally? Is it serving my loved ones, my family? Is it serving me to, look at this article and spend the next 4 hours crying in despair and kind of not being there for my family, for my kid, for not being in any type of position to act constructively on that? And is it ultimately serving the planet, this type of thinking? What is serving everyone involved better? Me thinking that there is nothing I can do about any of it and giving up? Or me thinking this is the biggest challenge that humanity has ever faced, and I have a part to play in being a solution to solve this? And what could that part be? Just to give you an example.
Yeah, that was really great. I recognize a lot of that. I just last week, I know it was 2 weeks ago now, I think even, there were wildfires really close by, and I thought, this is happening to me. I was like taking it very personally, like this wildfire, it's here to like mess up my plans, my life. And then I also realized, I thought myself, okay, why am I feeling like this? Why am I thinking like this? That wildfire is just happening. It's not happening to me. It's not happening because I did something or because I'm not responsible for the wildfire. But what can I now do to serve the people who are actually in those areas? Because I was literally next to it, so I'm not even affected directly by it. And then I also, like you just said, realized, instead of just being stuck in my own head and thinking, oh, I'm the victim here, and like, oh, everything is going so badly now, what can I do to serve the people who are there?
Yeah.
Or what can I do to make things better, to
Yeah.
create more awareness, stuff like that? And that makes a huge shift in your mindset as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanna kind of go back to that, because the goal is also not to, immediately take yourself out of the fear or the grief or all these emotions that you have when you have the forest fire, like the wildfires next door. The first step is always to allow these emotions and to like have them and to let them be there, let it be okay that you are having them, and to kind of fully process them through before you then move on to, okay, what do I want to change about this? So I want to say, I wanted to say that, because as I said, the goal is not to, put your pink tinted glasses on and now try to see the world as this perfect rainbow daisy place where, everything will work out fine even without me doing anything. I think the balance is really important. The balance of letting the emotions have their place in your life, but on the other hand, not being completely crippled and debilitated by those emotions to the point that you are unable to take any action whatsoever, other than just, giving up and going back into the proverbial cave and not do anything, give up. Yeah.
Yeah. I was also just thinking, I think there's also this other side. Like what I sometimes tend to do indeed is just skip the emotion and go into action. And I think that's also recognizable for many of the listeners as well. That sometimes you just see the news, I don't know, there's a new movie about, the fishing industry or whatever, and then people go, okay, I'm going to stop eating fish now. Without, actually, okay, what is happening? What do I feel about this? Why am I going to stop? eating fish all of a sudden now. And I think it's really nice how you say, you have to let the emotions take their space. And I was wondering if you have any tips how to stay in that moment instead of go to the, I'm going to change my life completely now so that I can better the planet and do the next thing. Because what I have noticed by myself, every time I do that, like 2 weeks later, I'm like, okay, I haven't eaten fish, but the emotion is still there, and the fish in the sea are still not better off because I skipped that step.
Yeah. Well, I mean, before I tell you, before I answer your question, I wanna speak to that, because of course, if anyone decides to change their life in a, let's say, positive way that will reduce their carbon footprint, their negative influence on the planet, that's obviously a fantastic thing, and I'm applauding anyone who does that. So I'm not saying that people who are watching this film that you mentioned and then decide to not eat fish all of a sudden, that's a bad thing. On the contrary, it can be a very good thing. But it like taking immediate action without processing the feeling becomes a problem when the taking action is, let's say, designed to distract yourself from your own emotion. I think that is the sort of the crucial point here. So how much more effective would you be in your taking action if you have gone through the emotion first, if you have processed the emotion first, if you have allowed the emotions to be fully there, and then take the action from that empowered place, from that conscious place, let's say, rather than just doing this knee-jerk default reaction that maybe isn't thought through completely. And I mean, maybe in the example of stopping to eat fish, it could be, even if done in a knee-jerk immediate way, it could have a positive impact. But sometimes we can, if we don't process the emotion first and we then take a knee-jerk reaction and like without thinking about it, just to distract ourselves from our emotion, it could be that this taking action has then unforeseen negative consequences that we haven't envisioned or like foreseen before, and then overall there is a net negative balance to everything. So that is what I wanted to say. So it's not bad to take films and other news article and things that you're reading as a sort of incentive to change your life. On the contrary, but it's just so much more intentional and aligned with yourself and sustainable also to keep implementing it over a long period of time, all your life ideally, if you've processed the emotion first, because then the action doesn't merely serve to cover up your emotion, to distract yourself from your emotion, but then you have taken the decision to change your life and to act in a different way than before, from a fully conscious and like mindful and aware place, rather than just this sort of blind, okay, let's go, and there is just this one option, and ignoring the fact that or not even seeing the fact that there could be like 5 or 6 options here. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to say to that. And how to process your emotion, like one of the most helpful things I can advise here is to, let's say, get into a position where you can observe yourself having the emotion. And there is a process of several steps to that I'm actually teaching in my coaching, in my programs. But essentially, the best mode of processing emotions is to let's say create a distance from them, figuratively speaking, by watching yourself while you are having this emotion from a place of compassion and curiosity. So you kind of step outside of the situation, outside of your body, and you watch yourself going through this emotion. You analyze, like a scientist, if you want, what is going on with you in your body while you are having this emotion. And if you do that, this will help you to not be at the effect of the emotion anymore. You're not deep inside the sort of hole in the hurricane, in the eye of the hurricane. Let's say you're not in the circling part of the hurricane anymore, but you are getting to either the eye or the outside where you can watch it from a calm place, and then have a look at that, and then decide how you want to react from that. So that is something that I can advise to. And of course, you know, I love using grounding exercises for that I'm using for my, you know, in my coachings and in my programs. Grounding exercises, meditations, that kind of thing, that really help to ground and to kind of reconnect ourselves with our inner beings, and also with our surroundings, with nature, that kind of thing. Yeah, I'm finding that very, very helpful to process emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you just said that then you come from a more intentional place, because I think now it's 6 years ago, but last year it was 5 years ago. I just went cold turkey vegan, and I had, like, people were asking me back then, like, why? And I was like, I don't know. I just want to do something. And then over the years, I found my reasons, and I found my way in how I wanted to do it. But because in the beginning there was no intention. In the beginning it was just like, I gotta do something. And I wasn't even looking at my emotions, or indeed I wasn't even checking in with myself, like, what am I really feeling about this? What am I distracting myself from? I just went, like, indeed, that, like, tunnel vision, like, let's do this now. And then 5 years later, the emotions came, and it was like, you never processed this, so good luck now. And it was then when I finally, like, thought about, okay, what am I feeling? Where do
Yeah,
these feelings come from, and how can I now change them? And how can I change my perspective on what I'm doing into
yeah,
something more coming from love instead of from fear? Because it was more like, if I start eating meat again, then the world will end. And now I'm like, I love my body, I love animals, I love my surroundings, I love nature. So I decide not to eat animals. And
yeah,
that is such a more calming place for myself as well. And I think others might recognize that when you just, like, decide on something and then people ask you about it, you just have this, I don't know, I'm just doing it, okay? Like, I'm doing something good, just let me do something good, right? Um yeah,
yeah.
I think yeah.
I mean, as I said before, I applaud you for going vegan, and I mean, I'm applauding anyone else who is taking action that is needed to be done. In fact, I'm thinking we don't need a few people doing things perfectly, you know, going zero waste and basically, you know, like putting their carbon footprint to minus, let's say. I think we need as many people as possible, millions of people doing the very best they can. And I really want to encourage everyone to, you know, look at their lives and think about, what could I do right now? What could be a first step for me? And if I have taken that first step already, what could be a next step? And what could be the next step after that? And, you know, kind of progressively go from one step to the next until, you know, you've reached the goal where you want to end up with your life, with your lifestyle, with your carbon footprint. Um, but I just wanted to speak to what you said before about the emotion appearing a few years later if they're not processed properly, because that's exactly the problem. This is why it is so important to allow the emotion to fully get processed before you are moving to the next step of, you know, changing mindsets or behaviors. Because if you don't do that, if you don't process the emotion, if you just push it away, if you resist it, if you avoid it, if you distract yourself from it, or if you're reacting from it, like you act out, you get into a temper tantrum, things like that, that speaks to this emotion not being fully processed. And what that does, if you keep avoiding and distracting yourself from the emotion, you just push it down into your inner being. And over time, you need even more willpower and discipline to keep it down. It's like, you can describe it like pushing a water, like a ball underwater in a bathing tub. So in the beginning, it's relatively easy to hold it down. But, after maybe, I don't know, a few minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour, it becomes more difficult to push it down. It takes more and more force. It's getting boring. You're getting tired. You're getting, so at some point you won't be able to sustain that anymore. And when you leave it, if you let it go, the ball won't just like float slowly to the surface and then, the salt, it will go like, phew, and actually jump out of the water. And exactly the same thing happens when we bottle up our emotions, when we bottle them down and we don't let them come to the surface naturally by themselves to dissolve, to be processed, to, all emotions are energy. An emotion is just a vibration of energy that flows from our brain through our body. And if we cut this energy off, if we compress it somewhere and bury it deep down somewhere in our bodies, it will stay there and fester and get bigger and bigger and stronger over time. And at some point you won't be able to help it, but it will just explode. And that is why it is so important to, really learn how to approach emotions from this sort of conscious and open and curious and compassionate place, and to really let them be part of your life and not have a problem with them being part of your life. In fact, all human emotions have a reason to be there, and they have something to tell you, and they are important, and they are actually part of the human existence. Like, we are conditioned as a society to think that the goal of life is to be happy all of the time, and that negative emotions are something bad, and we shouldn't have them, and if we have them at for some unfortunate circumstance or other, the goal must now be to get rid of them as soon as possible. So that doesn't leave any place for sadness, grief, fear, and all of the sort of the full scale of the human experience. We cut ourselves off from half of that if we don't allow negative emotion. And I think that's a very unhealthy, emotionally unhealthy way to go through life, if you're just pushing half of your existence away and don't allow that to be there. Yeah.
I definitely agree. Yeah. Experience taught me, yes.
Yeah.
Life is way more beautiful when you allow all the things to be. So I
Yeah.
have one last question for you.
Of course, yeah.
If people want to work with you to
Yes.
address their climate anxiety or their climate questions, how can they do that?
Yeah, thank you. So the most the easiest point of entry would be my website. So it's my name. Basically, it's www.katharinahellmann.com. I think we're going to have that in the show notes as well. But I'm also on all the socials. My Instagram handle is Eco Anxiety Coach, for example. And what I'm offering right now to people is there is free resources that I'm offering. There is, for example, I put together a guide to the 15 most effective things that an individual can do starting today to reduce their carbon footprint without even having to significantly change their life. So that is a guide that is for download on my website. And also I'm offering coaching session, of course, in a one-to-one private setting. So there is the option to have one-on-one coaching with me, but I'm also offering a group coaching program. Currently 6 weeks. It's called Overcoming Eco Anxiety. And that's also a domain. So it's overcoming-ecoanxiety.com, and that's the website of the program. And it's a 6-week group coaching program, which focuses on 3 main, let's say, problems around climate change. The first is how to address and manage and understand and deal with these crippling emotions, just to, so that you can feel better, how to manage the emotional side of climate change. The second tier of this program is the action side, like, what, now that I have learned how to manage my feelings, what can I now go and do about climate change. Like, what are the most effective actions that I can do personally with my individual set of circumstances, my family situation, my work situation, my values, my time commitments, like with all the things that I have going on in my life, and that I don't want to give up. What is the one thing or the 2 or 3 things that I can do? And then once you've picked that, learn how to actually make a plan to do that, how to enact that plan, how to get that on the street without giving up, without getting burned out, without getting overwhelmed, and without, with like minimal use of resources and time. And the last element of this program is relationships. Like, how can I navigate relationships with, like, for example, friends and family who aren't on the same page as I am on climate change? How can I get off this anger and blame and judgment train that I'm having? This like one of the core emotions that I'm feeling from people in the climate change sphere is anger. It's blame, it's judgment, like, you should be different, you should be behaving different, you shouldn't fly, you shouldn't eat meat, you should do this, government should do this, business should do that. So how can you get off this externalization, and how can you let that be what it is for the moment, and look into what you can do about improving and navigating and repairing, if you want, those kinds of relationships. So those 3 elements are covered in the program: feeling better, taking action, and coming together in the sense that you are navigating the relationships that you have and that you want to keep, and you learn how to form and how to find relationships with new people who are thinking like you. That's what I'm offering at the moment, and I'm actually at the moment working on another program that is centered more around the action side of things, like actually teaching people how to reduce their carbon footprint even more, and then also community building around climate change. So that is what I am having in the works right now. Yeah.
Awesome. I will include indeed everything in the podcast description so people can find all of this over there.
Perfect.
And I
Thank
want
you.
to thank you for sharing all the amazing things today. And
Thank you.
thank you for being here.
I'm more than honored, and you're welcome. Thank you very much for having me. It was
Yep.
nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
Bye.